Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're joined here, Jenna and Philip from Your Inner Game. And today we're talking about a subject that I know for me personally has been a cloak that I definitely have lived under. Mostly because I didn't have awareness. And that's the subject matter of shame. This is a really big deal, folks. I have conversations all of the time, and really what it comes down to is the people feeling such a deep level of shame around themselves, and how that is impacting everything in their lives and what they're creating in their lives. So this is a conversation we want to give just a little more information on, so that you can get an idea on what is shame, what does that even mean, and how is it showing up for us in our lives. So hi, Philip, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Jenna.
Let's talk about shame.
Okay, I guess you're inviting me to take it to the next step. So the easy way that's often been used to describe what shame is to say that it's emotion that comes up when there's something about us that we are afraid people will reject. So there's something intrinsic about who I am that isn't acceptable within the culture, within the group that I'm a part of. And that's really a great enough description of shame, but we can take it a few steps further to ask, well, how did that come to be? Like, what is it that could possibly exist in a person that would make them unworthy of being a part of society or of their family? And the examples often come to our relationship with our sexuality. There's a lot of shaming that happens in that area of our behavior. So the belief that there is something that I can do or some way that I can be sexual that isn't acceptable to the people around me. So having multiple partners or doing sex in a particular way, like these are just easy ways of getting into the idea that there's this emotion that I'm going to be rejected because of how I approach something. And the genesis of that is very interesting, because when each of us was born, we came into a world where our parents already had an idea of what behaviors and what attributes would get us to be accepted within the society they were raising us in. So for us to steal would immediately jeopardize not only the person as an individual, but the entire family. And it would lead to ostracization and rejection and not being able to be a part of the community. The same thing with lying, the same thing with all of the different aspects of behavior that just aren't normally acceptable. And our parents would discourage those things. And they would encourage other things like academic success or being devoted and committed to the work that we're doing. There's 100 things that would go into what we call the yellow, which are those things that were encouraged by our parents, and into the blue part of our personalities, which are the pieces that were discouraged. Mm-hmm. Now, many of those things were so disconnective. So, for example, if I'm a pedophile, I'm going to be completely ostracized and disconnected from my family. So that would be something that we call very, very blue. It's very, very shame-worthy. And there are 100 lesser examples of things that protect the community by discouraging people from doing those things. And whenever we bring out one of those parts of ourselves, because we have an entire collection of a billion different pieces that aren't safe to bring out into the community because they are harmful to other people, they do create disconnection. Those things bring us shame, bring up the feelings of shame, because people start to withdraw from us. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pass that back to you.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things, those things that we feel shame, we were raised to believe are shameful, and discouraged in our family, and or through our experiences, those things that we've experienced in our life that brought disconnection and brought a frowned upon situation for us. We start to take them on and we wear them like clothing, and it becomes our shield. So what we do from a behavior standpoint is if we get completely engaged in our shame and we feel it to such a degree that it really becomes integrated into our system, then we are always looking for proof of it. We're always looking for the proof of the shame that we feel. So in every situation, we are entering into it with this cloak of shame, looking for the validation of my unworthiness. So when we are coming from a place of unworthiness, we can't truly engage cleanly. We are coming in and we are engaging with the behavior and the actions and the seeking of proof or validation of our unworthiness. So that can really play out heavily in everything that we're doing, from our work to our relationships to how we engage in the world. Shame is something that if it's not discussed or brought up and released in some form or fashion, then it really does drive everything that we're doing. So it starts to develop our lives from this place of shame, which increases the feeling of shame, which increases the drive. It continues on. So until we can bring some of this to light for us as an individual, it really has an undercurrent that's driving our life.
Yeah, and the way that we identify shame are those beliefs about ourselves that I am unworthy, that I'm not, and that we use the word connection worthy, that because of how I be, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of respect, I'm not worthy of connection. And each of us carries a list of maybe 100, maybe 1,000 parts of ourselves that we simply can't bring to the fore, even if they're important parts of ourselves. And we spend our lives, kind of what you were saying, hiding those elements of ourselves so that only a portion of who we are is allowed to be shown to people. And it makes us neurotic. It makes us absolutely crazy, because if I'm not allowed to express my arrogance, then that part of myself, the part of, we wouldn't be here talking if we didn't have if we didn't have enough arrogance to say we have something to share with people. That arrogance is very, very valuable. It's mated together with humility, and we need our humility as well. But if we've only got humility, or it's only legitimate to show our humility but not our arrogance, you wouldn't have people like us coming out here and doing what we're hoping are very valuable discussions. So each of those pieces that's been repressed in us has some value under the right circumstances. And the way that we release people from shame is to help them to shift the relationship that they have with those rejected parts of themselves. And it's a magical process when that happens. And both you and I have been through that liberation into becoming comfortable with our vulnerability, being comfortable with our different things that at a certain, like up to a certain point, we weren't prepared to show other people.
Mm-hmm. And when we don't bring things to the surface and we don't do the shift that we're speaking about, our life really becomes the ultimate game of hide and seek. We're working so hard to hide those parts of us, and at the same time, we are seeking proof that they're there. So it becomes this dynamic that really plays out in behavior. So I'm really happy that we are taking on the tough subjects and having these discussions. So we're going to be moving on to our next video coming up, and it's going to be about futility. So I'll encourage you to look for that when it's put out, and it really does work off of this conversation of shame. So that'll be coming in the future. And until then, thanks everyone. Thanks Philip. I'm glad we had these conversations. Bye-bye.